After meeting with President Trump yesterday for the 20-point Gaza peace plan, which he agreed to, Benjamin Netanyahu didn't even wait 24 hours before he decided to backtrack on that agreement. Let's go ahead and get into it, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to break down this 20-point Gaza peace plan and explain to you why this is not a win for the Palestinian people. And I would not be surprised if Hamas did not accept this plan. Let's get into it, folks. It started off with the conference that happened on Monday. Here is Donald Trump here laying out that plan.
But if accepted by Hamas, this proposal calls for the release of all remaining hostages immediately, but in no case more than 72 hours. So the hostages are coming back, and I hate even saying this from the standpoint, doesn't sound right, but it is so important to the parents. The bodies of the young men, I believe in almost all cases, the young men are coming back immediately. I met with parents. The parents felt as strongly about getting the body of their dead boy back as they did as though the boy were alive and well. It's so important to them. And it means the immediate end to the war itself, not just Gaza. It's the war itself. Under the plan, Arab and Muslim countries have committed, and in writing in many cases, but I actually would take their word for it. The people I mentioned, I'd take their word for it, to demilitarize Gaza, and that's quickly. Decommission the military capabilities of Hamas and all other terror organizations. Do that immediately.
We're going to pause here for just a second. So people need to pay attention to what this actually means. So remember, Gaza is not a state. Because there isn't a Palestinian state, the Palestinian people don't have a military, right? So the way that you get a Hamas is when you occupy and oppress the people. You force these people off of their land, you encage them in basically like an open air prison, and every now and then you go in and you mow the lawn in Gaza. You go in and you kill people. Palestinians over the years have tried to have peaceful protests, and the IDF have decided to shoot at their feet. This has been going on for a long time. This didn't start on October 7th, if you're new to this. So that is how you get a Hamas. Now, this is something that the Zionist entity was very well aware of when they decided to create a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. They knew that if you only want to have that particular group there, that they would have to expel the Palestinian people. This was known a long time ago when this was all decided. And knowing that you are going to expel the indigenous people to the land, what that then means is that there is going to be resistance. And this is one of the reasons why I am very much offended by the politicians who say we want to end the offensive weapons, but we still want to protect the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome exists because they knew that when they kicked indigenous people off their land, there would be some type of resistance. Not only you kick them off the land, but then you imprison them, right? Or you take the portion and they're in the West Bank, but you steal their homes and you kick them off of their homes. A lot of the people in Gaza are refugees. So people have to remember that. So demilitarizing Gaza means that the Palestinian people would not have any form of resistance. And I would also add to this, Hamas at this point, like removing Hamas from Gaza doesn't change what has happened, right? This is something that history has taught us. Removing, like, for example, what we'll use the Holocaust, for example, when the US and other Western allies defeated the Nazis during World War II, did that end the practice of that belief? No, we have neo-Nazis right here in the United States. So the belief doesn't die. That's what people really have to understand. Israel is going to continue to occupy Gaza, but you can't have any resistance. You can't have any military. How is that fair? Israel has an Iron Dome. They have the IDF. They have the backing of the United States. They have been terrorizing these people for years. So when you hear the president speak the way that he is speaking, the same thing, Biden did the same thing about the resistance, it is important that you understand why there was a resistance in the first place. Let's continue on.
And we're relying on the countries that I named and others to deal with Hamas. And I'm hearing that Hamas wants to get this done too, and that's a good thing. And destroy all terror infrastructure, including the tunnels, weapons, production facilities. They have a lot of production facilities that we're destroying.
I don't even know who wrote this for Donald Trump, because the way that he's reading this is almost as if like he didn't write this, right? Like he's like, oh, what does this say next year, etc.
They'll also help train local police forces in the areas that we're discussing right now.
Yeah. And who are those police going to work for? So one thing I do want to mention here, that he said that Hamas wants to get this done as well. According to the information from Hamas leadership, that is not, Hamas was not presented with this plan. When this press conference took place, Hamas had not agreed upon this plan yet. This was decided among Donald Trump, the other Arab leaders, and when Netanyahu came to the United States on Monday, decided upon him as well. So it's really interesting. Like, you really have to do your own research, because he is speaking as though Hamas had already agreed to this. They did not. He didn't even present this plan to them yet, but he's going public as though everything's all lined up.
In particular, in and around Gaza, working with the new transitional authority in Gaza, all parties will agree on a timeline for Israeli forces to withdraw in phases. They'll be withdrawing in phases. No more shooting, hopefully, as progress is made toward achieving these goals. Arab and Muslim nations need to be allowed the chance to fulfill these commitments of dealing with Hamas. They have to deal with them, because they were the one group that we have not dealt with. I haven't dealt with them. But the Arab countries are going to, and Muslim countries are going to be dealing with Hamas, and I believe they've already been there. I think they probably have an understanding, and they haven't maybe mentioned that, but I would imagine they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone as far as they've gone. If they're unable to do so, then Israel would have the absolute right, and actually our full backing, the U.S. full backing. Marco's here, and a lot of our leaders are here. Our great Vice President, Susie Wiles, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. They've been so involved in this process. I don't think anybody else could have done it, or even come close. But it's we're right there. We're right there. First time in thousands of years, I think you can probably say, if you really look into it, if you study back, if you're a scholar, you would say thousands of years. Israel would have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas.
So, two things. Number one, he says this goes back thousands of years. So that right there, he's revealing himself here. For those who say this started on October 7th, that in itself lets you know that this has been an issue for a long time. And it's so interesting. Of course, he's not going to tell you what Israel is and what Israel has been doing, and that they are the occupier. They are the oppressor. They control the land, the air, and the sea. Of course, he's not going to get into that, but that's a revealing moment if people were really paying attention. Two, he is telling you that if Hamas does not agree to this deal, that Israel has his full support and backing to continue to kill civilians, not just Hamas, but also civilians. So let me tell you what I think is going to happen here. And I made this prediction yesterday. Benjamin Netanyahu does agree to this deal, but is already backtracking. We'll get to that in just a second. This doesn't mean anything. This press conference here from Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, this is just all for theater. This is all for optics. Now, I would say there has been a lot of pressure applied to Donald Trump, in support of the Palestinian people, just as there was under Biden's administration. This is Donald Trump responding to pressure. Had there not been, and he's also getting pressure from people on the right, people who voted for him, not just those on the left. So had there not been any pressure, any protests, any public uprising towards Donald Trump about this, I don't even think this press conference happens, first and foremost. Two, the other thing here that I think we need to take into consideration, we have to remember that Israel has been notorious for violating the ceasefire, then accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire, and using that as a means to justify to continue to kill babies in Gaza. So I don't know why people assume that this is going to be anything different. When I saw this press conference, I said, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel, they're going to do whatever they want to do. They're going to do whatever they want to do, regardless of what he just said here with Donald Trump. So you know the game by now. You know the trick that they do. We'll just say, well, Hamas broke the ceasefire so we can continue doing what we want to do. And he knows that he can do that because no one's going to push back on Israel or question what Israel is doing. So I almost was hesitant to even cover this because I don't believe that this is a peace deal. I don't believe this is a real ceasefire, because a real permanent ceasefire would mean that the Palestinian people would have their own state, because by having their own state, they would also be allowed to have their own military, which is what Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want. Israel is still there in Gaza. So I don't believe any of this. I think it's all for optics. Let's continue.
But I hope that we're going to have a deal for peace. And if Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible, they're the only one left. Everyone else has accepted it. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do. Everyone understands that the ultimate result must be the elimination of any danger posed in the region. And the danger is caused by Hamas.
The danger is Israel. Israel's the danger. You remove Israel from the region and the Arab countries can go back to, just living their lives the way that they were before this supremacist genocidal state existed. This is just the reality. They're the ones killing hundreds and thousands of people. They're the ones killing babies and bragging about it. They're the ones doing these things.
The tyranny of terror has to end, and this is, again, something that we're looking for. This is eternity. This is for forever. To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it. And we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Good man. Very good man.
No, not a very good man. We're not going to go through all of this because my blood is just boiling just listening to this again. Tony Blair. So Donald Trump says he has this board of peace for Gaza. and that they want him to lead it. And one of the people that he wants to be on the board is war criminal Tony Blair. Let's get to this in just a second. I'll show you Netanyahu's response, and then we will come back to Netanyahu backtracking. So people need to understand, this is who Donald Trump wants to lead a board of peace. And it's even funny to me, he's calling it a board of peace, considering you just renamed the Department of Defense the Department of War. Like, I don't understand how people are this naive and falling for this. Tony Blair was a big participator and advocator for the Iraq War. 20 years later, and Tony Blair is still a war criminal. Let's get into this just a little bit here. We are 20 years on from the invasion in Iraq, but the devastating impacts are still being felt. This is coming from the Scottish Greens, branding it one of the most immoral, disastrous foreign policy decisions taken by a UK prime minister in modern history. The party has accused Tony Blair of amassing a fortune, swanning around TV studios and picking up paychecks from some of the world's worst human rights abusers, when he should instead be sitting in The Hague on trial for war crimes. Do people not understand how disgusting it is to announce that Tony Blair is going to be a part of a board of peace for Gaza? Now, I don't know how old everyone is that is watching, but there are many of us that remember the Iraq War. I definitely do. The war that was built on a lie. They told you that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. That was a lie. Anything to go to war. Well, Tony Blair was one of the biggest advocates for the Iraq War. This is the same guy who basically gave excuse for the human rights abuses that were happening, for the death of civilians that were happening in Iraq. That was pushed by Dick Cheney and Tony Blair. So there are many of us who remember. There are some of us who have friends and family members that died in the Iraq War. This war built on a lie. Tony Blair should not be on any board of any sort. He definitely shouldn't be on the board of peace. He should be in jail. And this is who Donald Trump is appointing. And he says he's a good man. 2, the Palestinian people don't need Western countries to come in and create some board and to chaperone them as if they are children. The Palestinian people need to have their own determination, their own self-determination. What they do not need is some sort of Western power hovering over them and watching them like they're kids. And people expect this to go well. This sick, depraved war criminal, Tony Blair. There are many of us that remember. That's where we're at now. Why are Western countries trying to decide what should happen for the Palestinian people? Imagine if another country said, this is what is going to happen for the American people. Some would say that would be Israel, but imagine if they came in and appointed a board over us. If they came in and installed a president for us. Imagine those things. This is just more occupation and more oppression. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu stood right on this stage and he agreed to this peace, this so-called peace deal. Listen to this.
We're taking a critical step towards both ending the war in Gaza and setting the stage for dramatically advancing peace in the Middle East. And I think beyond the Middle East, in very important Muslim countries. I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
Imagine talking about Gaza posing a threat to Israel when Israel is the one that poses the threat. Again, I ask all of you, imagine if someone came to your house, pulled you out by force, and told you, this is my house now, and sent you to go live in this open air prison. You don't think any of those people at some point in time wouldn't have some type of resistance? This is colonialism at its finest. I keep telling you guys, this is just an expansion of white supremacy. There are going to be different groups that do it. That's what this is really all about. And yes, the U.S. is backing it. And like I said before, for all the people who come forward and say, oh, we support civil rights, we support equality, like Chuck Schumer, the Democrats too, like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, you don't support civil rights. You don't support equality if you're supporting what Israel does to the Palestinian people. You're supporting supremacy. People need to pay attention to what this really is. Now, I want to show you this. We're going to look at this plan. And like I said, BB is already backtracking. So we're going to look at that as well. So as you can see, this is the 20 points, right? So they talked about releasing the hostages, demilitarizing Hamas, etc. Someone pointed all of these points here. But this is what I want to show you. This picture here. So Trump, end of Gaza war. Look at this, guys. Check this out. Oh, maybe I'll bring it back because it's real tiny this way. I want to show you what these lines mean. The blue line says IDF current line of control. So you can see this here from Gaza City all the way to Khan Yunis. The yellow line says initial withdrawal hostage release. So that's from Rafah. See the yellow line here? And then the red line says second withdrawal when ISF mobilized their standards set in Trump plan. That's the red line here. And look at this part. This is the green shaded area. Third withdrawal security buffer zone. This is just apartheid. This is still apartheid. You see, in this so-called peace deal, which I don't consider apartheid peace. I don't know about you guys. In this so-called peace deal, it's still apartheid. And it's laughable to me that people can have their frustrations with apartheid South Africa, but you can't look at Israel and see the same damn thing. Some would even say the apartheid in Israel is worse than it was in South Africa. Pay attention to that when you hear people like Jordan Peele, who was against apartheid in South Africa, say that Israel doesn't have apartheid. Remember these things. What's in it for these people? Why are they lying to you? This is an absolute joke. An absolute joke. And then you'll see here, see if I can find the one. Yeah, the comments are just like, holy crap. Look at this. 7. Upon acceptance of this agreement, full aid will be immediately sent into the Gaza Strip. So yes, that's a clear admission that Israel has been deliberately withholding aid. In other words, acknowledging a war crime. I don't understand how people don't pick up on these things. Like, I really don't. Like, they are admitting to your face that this is what this has really all been about. And like I said before, had it not been for the protests, the activists, and people on the right calling out what Israel was doing, I don't even think you get this press conference. Goes on to say Gaza redevelopment advances. They will do that when the Palestinian Authority reform or program is faithfully carried out. The conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as aspiration of the Palestinian people. However, that's BS too, because during that press conference, Donald Trump said Benjamin Netanyahu is against a Palestinian state, which isn't news to me. He's always been against this. So this is all smoke and mirrors. People have to understand that. There's a lot of accounts right now on social media, a lot of right-wing accounts that are saying, yay, Donald Trump bringing about peace. lot of these accounts, they're paid to run cover for Donald Trump, just like there were accounts that were paid to run cover for Biden and Kamala. People need to look at this and see it for what it really is. You don't get to come in and tell another group of people what they should do and how they should live. And the U.S. has been doing this for quite a long time. They are not letting the Palestinian people have freedom and self-determination. This is not peace. There is no peace as long as Israel is there. They are a threat. They're the threat. They're the problem. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu stood on that stage and said he agrees to the plan. He didn't even wait 24 hours before he spoke in Hebrew, which means he's speaking to Israelis, before he spoke in Hebrew, and he already decided to walk away from the plan. He was never going to agree with this. He was never going to agree to it. Listen to this. You'll have to read the captions here at the bottom because he's speaking in Hebrew.
ראש הממשלה, איך אתה מסכם את הביקור?
זה היה ביקור מצוין. גם ההתחלה באו"ם וגם הסיום בוושינגטון. זה הביקור הרביעי שלי בוושינגטון מאז שהנשיא טראמפ נבחר. זה ביקור היסטורי. במקום שהחמאס יבודד אותנו, הפכנו את היוצרות ובודדנו את החמאס.
He said, instead of Hamas isolating us, we turned the tables on Hamas, and now the entire world has isolated them. No, that's really not the case. Because here's the thing. If Israel was winning this, you don't even have this 20-point plan. Israel has lost the media war. They've lost the war in the eye of public opinion. They've lost the support of the world. You saw all the world leaders that walked out on Benjamin Netanyahu. So that's why they're at this point right now. That's why he's like, oh, I'll agree to it here. But I told people never to trust this. And the plan is trash anyway. Let's continue.
גם העולם הערבי והמוסלמי לוחץ על החמאס לקבל את התנאים שהצבנו יחד עם הנשיא טראמפ.
So he said even the Arab countries are pressuring Hamas to stand for this agreement. But you have to remember those Arab countries are puppets of the West, right? Qatar, UAE, Qatar. I keep calling it Qatar. Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. These are countries that are puppets of the West.
לשרת כל חטופינו, החיים והחללים כאחד, כשצה"ל נשאר ברוב הרצועה.
Release all the hostages while the IDF remains in most of the strip. He goes on to say, who would have believed this? After all, people constantly say,
מי היה מאמין לזה? הרי כל הזמן אומרים, אתה חייב לקבל את התנאים של החמאס, להוציא את כולם, צה"ל צריך לצאת החוצה, והחמאס יכול להשתקם, ויכול גם...
He said people were saying you should accept Hamas terms so we can get all the hostages out. The IDF should withdraw. Hamas can recover and...
לשקם את הרצועה. לא ולא, זה לא קורה.
There it is right there. Hamas can recover and it can also rehabilitate the strip. And he goes on to say here, no, that's not happening. This is the exact opposite of what he agreed to with Donald Trump on that stage. They have no intention of withdrawing from Gaza. Now, Donald Trump isn't going to call this out because he's in on it too. They're all in on it. People really need to understand that. Donald Trump, when he took that money from Marion Adelson, he was in on it. Don't forget, during his first presidential term, he was the one that moved the capital to Jerusalem. Don't forget that. Same thing with Biden. He was already in on it. They're all in on it. People have to understand that. So he couldn't even wait 24 hours before he already started to backtrack on that agreement. This is important for people to understand because whatever comes next, you need to refer back to this video. He'll pretend as though he did not say this.
ההפך, והנשיא טראמפ הוסיף שאם החמאס יסרב, הוא ייתן כל הגיבוי לישראל להשלים את הפעולה הצבאית וחיסולו. ולכן אני חושב שמכל צעד זה היה ביקור מצוין.
ראש הממשלה, יש שאלה שנשאלת, האם הסכמתם למדינה פלסטינית?
They're asking him about a Palestinian state.
ממש לא, וגם לא כתוב בהסכם. אבל דבר אחד כן אמרנו.
Absolutely not. right? So there's another thing that came up during that press conference that I wanted to mention as well. He actually had the audacity, Benjamin Netanyahu, to read scripture from Genesis, from the Bible. I want to be very clear about something, folks. The Israel that is mentioned in the Bible is not the modern day Israel of today. And we really need to do some deep digging. Really need to. You guys know that there are multiple versions of the Bible. You guys know that? How do you know the one that you're reading from is the right one? How do you know that? You really don't. You really don't know. You believe, but you really don't know. So he tried to use the Bible as a reason for why Israel should be there and occupy the area and continue killing people and all these sorts of things. But as I told you before, that Israel that is mentioned in the Bible is not the modern day Israel of today. Israel in the Bible is referred to as the followers of Abraham. Somehow this message became distorted. Almost seems intentional. People really need to look into this. 2, the Bible is not the law of the land in the United States. So why is he even bringing this up? 3, we have separation of church and state in this country. For people like him and Mike Huckabee and Ted Cruz who get up there and say, well, the Bible says so. The Bible is not the law of the land. Religion is a belief. And from my experience growing up in the church, everybody believes that their religion is the right one. And Islam is the largest religion, by the way, not Christianity. He should have never been here in the U.S. to begin with. This war criminal should not be allowed to step onto U.S. soil in the first damn place. The fact that people gather around to even hear what this guy had to say in person. I know you're press. Yeah, I understand you got to do your job. But what I am saying is there should be absolute outrage that this disgusting war criminal is back in the United States. And there have been protests. For all the liberals who keep saying nobody's protesting under Biden, under Trump, that's bullshit. There have been multiple protests. People were protesting before Benjamin Netanyahu even got here. So what's your game? What's your angle? Because let's keep it real. The Biden-Harris administration started this genocide. Their hands aren't clean. Trump's hands aren't clean. They're both guilty. People are seriously allowing partisan politics to be a cover for excusing a genocide. I never thought I would see something so sick in this country before in my life. So this is not a peace deal. This is control and more occupation of Gaza. Bringing in someone like Tony Blair, war criminal, be part of this so-called peace board only proves my point. More about that. No human being in this country should be treated that way. No human being in the world should be treated that way. And hopefully one day, for people who are still asleep, people will wake up to the fact that we actually had a genocide happen in modern day. And the U.S. government not only supported it and backed it, but ran cover for it. And the media apparatus also ran cover for it. So when people say that things, we've come a long way, have we? As a society, have we really come a long way? Think about that. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.